Smite 101 series. This is a series I've been doing on how to improve at Smite, and so sort of the things that you want to be focusing on if you're not improving at the rate that you feel like you should be, or if you're just new to the game and you just want to learn, some of the ways that you can improve. And so this is the fifth video. The first four focus more on things specific to Smite, the game itself. But this video is going to be on sort of the mental side of things, and this is sort of a concept that applies to really anything that you're trying to improve at, whether it's Smite, another video game, a sport, academics, or just any, hobby you have, or whatever you're trying to improve at. This kind of applies to that, but I'm going to talk about it because it applies to Smite as well. And so this is sort of, figuring out, getting your mentality in the right place for improving, right? And so Smite is obviously a very mental game. I mean, it's almost 100% of it is just the decisions that you make, even more so than your mechanics. Like, just to give an example, if any of you watched at the end of season 2, I think it was season 2, was it season 3? I think it was the end of season 2, when the Xbox Invitational happened at Worlds, where they have, like Xbox World Championships or something, and the envious PC Smite team that didn't make Worlds on PC switched to Xbox, played for a month, and stomped everybody because their decision making was so good, even though their mechanics weren't good at all. So Smite is really a mental game, and if you have sort of these mental blocks that are preventing you from making the right decisions and preventing you from improving, then that can really hinder your improvement. So basically, what you want to do, and I'm going to give some examples of what I'm talking about. You want to spend some time. You want to spend time thinking about the game itself, but you also want to spend some time just examining what, how you're sort of getting in your own way mentally, and preventing yourself from getting better. So I want to give some examples of what I mean, because this can look different for different people. One of the most common ones is tilt, or like raging. If you are getting, too upset over little things going wrong, almost no game is going to go perfectly where, you get first blood and then get 15 kills in the first 10 minutes and, just run over the enemy team, right? Like, most games aren't going to be that way. So you have to be able to deal with setbacks without getting, super frustrated. An example of that is, like, if you get first blooded, not just throwing in the towel, or if your lane gets ganked, not giving up or raging at your teammates or things like that. And it's hard. I mean, this is hard to do. This is one of the things that I struggle with the most, is tilt, not just in Smite, but in other things too. Like, I have trouble with it in Smite. I have, gameplays on YouTube where I've gotten first blooded and sort of started to throw in the towel. Like, I've told my teammates, like, this game's over. Let's just surrender at 10 minutes. And, one of my friends that I'm playing with is like, no, snap out of it. We're going to win this game. Just keep playing and we're going to figure out how to win this. And then we do that. And it doesn't always work, but sometimes we turn it around and have a really good game and win that we wouldn't have done if we had just thrown in the towel. Another example, like, even out of Smite, like in high school, I was really big into playing golf. I played on my high school team, and I really wanted to get better, and I spent hours and hours and hours at the driving range and at the course every summer trying to get better. And my swing was really good, but golf is a really frustrating game. And so, when I would hit bad shots, I would get really frustrated and just start. Basically, I would give up and I'd start throwing strokes away, and I threw away a lot of good rounds because of not being able to handle my emotions. And so, this happens in all sorts of things, but it applies to Smite too. You really have to be able to keep your emotions in check, when things don't go wrong, because it's not the end of a game if you screw up a gank, or you get ganked, or if you get first blood. The game is not necessarily over, and there are plenty of opportunities to bring the game back. So that's one example. If that's something that you do, something that you want to work on. Another example is like a lack of confidence or psyching yourself out. This is something that I've had issues with, where as I've started to get better and I've started to play with better players and I start seeing names that I recognize and I'm like, oh, I know these players are pretty good, I sort of start to get worried, like, can I hang with these guys? And you sort of psych yourself out where you start playing scared almost. And that's, you shouldn't be playing any differently. If what you're doing is making you get better, and then you start playing against better players, you shouldn't stop what you're doing. You shouldn't play differently because these players are better. Don't overestimate your opponents, things like that. You also don't want to underestimate yourself. I have a friend that I play with all the time who I have no doubt is good enough to be a pro if he really commits to it. But he, for a while he was having this issue where he was just not confident in himself. He had, a couple weeks where he was having a lot of bad games, not really playing up to the level that he had been. and he was starting to think, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I need to switch roles. I don't know that I can do this anymore. And I basically just had to sit him down and be like, dude, you need to snap out of it. Like, you're a really good player. You just need to believe in yourself. Not every game is going to go well, but don't tell yourself that you're not good enough for this, because, you have a lot of potential and you can do really well. And after I told him that, it took a couple days, but he started to play better. He started to, he started listening to what I was telling him, and it made a big difference, right? So that's another thing, is you don't want to underestimate yourself, regardless of who you're playing against. Like sometimes, you'll feel like you're getting a little better, and then you'll sort of plateau. You'll stop improving for a little bit, or you might feel like you're going back a little bit, just because your improvement slows down. That's a big thing. When your improvement slows down, it can feel like you're getting worse, but that's not the case. And I've had this problem too. So just, if you feel like you start feeling like you're not getting better, you're getting worse, just remind yourself that bad games happen, bad weeks happen, but, you can't be, overly, you just don't want to get too down on yourself, because if you're not confident in yourself, then you're not going to go to make a place. On the sort of the opposite end of the spectrum, there's things like overconfidence. I see this a lot. People that, either one, are so confident in themselves that they just get too aggressive and make stupid plays. But even more than that is that people, they're so confident in themselves that they think they can't do any wrong, so they never take the blame for anything. This means that they're, when they do something wrong, they're not trying to fix it. They're not, looking at what they could have done better. It's always, just, oh, well, my teammate screwed that up, whatever. And then you're not going to improve from that, right? So there's sort of a balance you want to be, right? You want to look for the things that you did wrong that you can improve on. You don't want to be so overly confident that that you never try to fix your mistakes. But at the same time, you don't want to be so like overly self-critical that you get down on yourself and lose confidence, and make yourself frustrated because you're so hard on yourself. I've had moments where I've been in both scenarios. I have, ranked games where I do really, I have like a really good KD or something, KDA, which doesn't really mean that much in Smite, but I'm like, oh, I was 9-2 that game, and my solo laner fed. Obviously, that was their fault. I couldn't have done anything better. And then I go back and realize that there were lots of things that I could have done better that game, and I just wasn't looking at it because I was too, high on myself. Like I was just like, I thought that I could do no wrong, and that just wasn't the case. And then I've had other times where, a game goes really badly, and I'm like, this game is all my fault. There's all these things I did wrong. I suck at this game. And that's not really the case either. I'm sure I could have done better, but there were things that my teammates didn't do great either. And, I need to be able to learn from the things that I did wrong without getting mad at myself. So those are just a couple examples of sort of the mental blocks you can have, or the different places that, you can mentally just kind of go off track. And so it's going to be different for every person. Obviously I can't sit up here and be like, this is why, this is the thing that you're thinking that's wrong. Like, I don't know what's in your head, but it's important for you to spend some time really thinking about what is slowing you down mentally from improving. How are you getting in your own way mentally, and then work to fix that. Some of them are easy to recognize. Like, I think lack of confidence is probably something that's easy to recognize in yourself, but it's hard to fix, because it's one thing to just say, be more confident, but like, that's not really how confidence works, right? But you want to try. Whereas on the other side, overconfidence is probably really, really hard to admit to yourself, right? Like, because you're overconfident, you don't want to admit that. But if you can admit that, then it's probably easier to fix. So they all are different, but you really want to take some time figuring out not only what are your mental blocks, but then spending time trying to fix them. And it's really going to help you improve in the long term. So yeah, hopefully this is helpful. I'm going to do some more videos in the future for this series on more content specific to Smite. So one thing that I had a comment that mentioned, I should talk about like team fights and rotations and stuff. And so what I want to do is I did this last season where I did a role on each of a guide on each of the roles in Smite. So I did a jungle guide, a solo guide, a mid guide, or whatever, all the roles. And they did pretty well. A lot of people seem to like them. And so I did the jungle guide for season 4 already, and then I haven't really gotten around to doing the other ones. So I think what I'm going to do is in the coming days, I'm going to do those guides for the other 4 roles, and possibly redo the jungle one. I'm not sure. But I'm going to do those and put those in as part of this series. So there should be a solo guide, a mid guide, an ADC guide, and a support guide coming out soon. Just kind of going over the basics, what you need to know from a basic standpoint to play those roles, and then maybe a few extra tips and tricks. So if you're not sure how one or more of those roles work, look to those in the future days. And then after that, if you guys have any suggestions on other things I should cover in the series, please let me know. I'm happy to take suggestions because I'm kind of out of ideas after that. So let me know. But thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.